Hello, I'm Jacqueline King. Welcome to my sewing space. Today, I have a special guest with me. He's going to help introduce our new sewing series. This is my husband, David. Say hello.
Hello.
David is the man behind the camera and actually the one who makes this whole business roll. I always tell people I'm the sewer, he's the business end. He makes it happen. So today David is here because in our new basic sewing series, he's going to help me demonstrate how to mark a pair of jeans for hemming. That might seem a little mundane, but I promise you if you take these tips to heart and practice them at home, you will feel very rewarded. I have to say, one of my rewards is not just sewing for myself and not just earning a living sewing, but blessing my husband when he needs a button sewn on, when he needs a zipper fixed, when he needs brand new jeans hemmed. I can do that for him. And as a wife, it's not old-fashioned to say that it's my joy. So, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You know what to do.
Yeah.
Up on the platform. Okay, let's get comfy. Now, the first thing I want to say is when you mark for yourself, it's a little bit trickier. You're going to put your jeans on, you're going to fold them to where you think. You'll go and look in the full-length mirror and check. If you like it, put a pin in it and take them off. Personally, I only mark one leg unless I know that the person I'm marking might have a slight deviation. Often people can be off a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, or even more from one leg to the other. But my husband's pretty even. And so what I'm going to ask him, I've already asked him to do, to face away from me because I prefer to mark at the heel to start. And the reason is most people, when they want their pants hemmed, the goal is to get them off of the ground so they're not walking on them. So I will ask them a few questions. Where do you like to wear your pants and so on. So to start, I just roll up. Let me get this out of the way. I think I'll do this leg. It might be easier for you to see. Okay, so I've started by rolling it here. And this is a very thick shoe. Also, you want to be wearing the shoes you're mostly going to wear with the pants because the height of the sole can affect too. But David mostly wears this type of a sole. So it is off of the ground. And if you see here, it's about as far as it's going to go down here. You don't want it any longer than that on this type of setup. So at this point, I'm going to put a pin just to mark it, to keep it there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure it because we do not hem on the slant. I've had clients in the past ask me, please hem them so they're long in the back and short in the front. And honestly, I'm going to just tell you, please, with all the love in my heart, it looks goofy. Please don't do it. It's just when I hem straight all the way around. So if there's anything to be adjusted out of the front, it's going to be adjusted out of the back too. All right, next step. Take my measuring tool, put it here. Sorry. Let's see if we can see better that way. There we go. Put it at the bottom of the fold and I look up and it's 1 3/4 inches from here to here. All right, so we're going to take them up. Right now, the way they're pinned, 1 3/4. And this is where I say, please turn around. Because we want to check and see if it's still too sloppy here. If it's still too sloppy here when we take up 1 3/4 inches, then we will raise it higher. So it's a little bit of a process. I lay this here and I find 1 3/4. And if you're pinning your children or your spouse, you can ask them to go and take a look at it in the mirror now. And this is what I will tell my clients. Step down and stand in front of the mirror sideways and look at what you have. This is called a break. A break is extra fabric at the shin. And the break determines how much of your red argyle socks are going to show when you sit down. More break, less sock. Less break, more sock. Think of it like that. So especially in dress slacks, men will be very particular about the type of break they want. I would term this a double break. And here's how you can see that visually. That's quite a bit of fabric. So what I'm going to say to my husband is, babe, these are off the floor in the back, but tell me what you think. Is that too much fabric there? Do you want, is it okay, or do you want less? Do you want your red argyle socks to show when you sit?
Yeah, I would say a little bit less. Because
a little less.
To be too much down
yeah,
there.
It's still, okay, that's fine. Because everybody's different, and you have to do it the way they're going to wear it. If they're not going to be happy with it, they're not going to wear them. So at this point, now I start adjusting in the front. We still have a break, but it sure is less sloppy. And also I need to mention, when they look down, it is better to stand in front of a full-length mirror to check them, because when you drop your head, the fabric drops and you will not get an accurate view. But for the sake of our demonstration today, I kind of know what my husband likes after almost 20 years of marriage, so I think he'll be very happy with this. He doesn't like a lot of red argyle showing. Okay, so I did that. We've adjusted at the front. And I would call that a healthy single break. So now I'm going to measure again. And we've taken it up another whole inch. It's 2 3/4. Please turn around, sir. And because, no, a little this way. Put this one up, move that forward. That's a guy. That's a guy. That's a guy. He's my guy. Aren't you happy you get to meet Mr. King today? Let's take our pin out. There. Ooh, yeah. It's still at the bottom of his heel. But let's make sure. And we have 2 3/4 inches. And voila, we now have our jeans marked. It doesn't usually take this long. It's long because I'm talking to you about it. I'm not going to worry about this one because I'm going to show you when we go over to our table to make our marks and press them, trim them, prepare them. You will see I'm using this measurement on both legs, and they'll be even. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
We're done. All right, here we are at the ironing board where we will be marking and pressing our finished hem. Before we mark what I already pinned on David, I want to talk to you for just a moment about inseam measurements. If you're like me, you may occasionally have a son who lives far away who says, "Mom, can you hem my pants for me?" If I send them to you, and what's your inseam? My inseam is, let's say, 30. So if you ever get a call like that, or somebody hands you a pair of pants and says, "Please hem these, my inseam is," I want to show you how to measure an inseam. That is for when you don't have the person able to put the pants on for you, like we did with my husband. So where do we measure the inseam? The inseam is the seam at the inside of the leg. Do not let top stitching on jeans distract you. This thread is not the inseam. The top of the inseam, I should say. This thread is not. where the fold is, this is your seam line. This is the center of the pants. And so from this point, we will measure down. So you simply lay the pants so that you can see that seam flat. Take a cloth or plastic measuring tape and lay the end of the metal at that fold. And I call it tapping it out. I'll bring it down and drop it, and then kind of tap, 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 tap. Do not stretch anything. And when you find 30 inches or whatever your inseam is, you just put a tick mark. And that's it. And now your pants are marked. I wanted to show you that because there are occasions when it happens frequently here with my clients. So we're going to get back to our current project though, and we know that we folded these and marked these at 2 3/4 inches. So you know what I can do? I can take that out. Toss that aside. Lay that out flat. If your pants are a little bit wrinkly, you should have ironed them before you tried to mark them because accuracy matters. And now there's a couple of different ways. There's a professional way of doing this, and I do like to give you professional tips, but I also want to make it easy for the beginner if this is a little advanced. So for the beginner, take whatever, I like to use a hard ruler, a hard measuring stick, and knowing that we're looking for 2 3/4, I lay 2 3/4 at the bottom of the pant and make a tick mark. This is white chalk. You can use regular chalkboard chalk. If you take a scissor and wear down the end, you can make a point on it, and it works great, and it's not permanent. Move over, make another. Now, we could simply draw here, flip it over, do the same, draw, and do that, and do that. When you're a professional, you want to do things quick, because the quicker you do things, the more likely you are to make a profit in the business. So I'm going to move these up onto the hard table because I want a firm base. I have lined all 4 of the bottom edges on top of each other. I think I'm going to unfold that. You might be able to see better. This isn't hard to figure out. I just want to be accurate. Okay, so 2 3/4, 2 3/4. Lay my measuring stick across those marks, firmly holding it in place. Draw. Lift up the top pant leg without moving the measuring stick. Run it so it is going along the back side of the top leg and the top of the bottom leg, if that makes sense. You'll see in just a moment. So I press it like so and down, over and down. That's where the pressure is. And run it across. And now, still holding everything tight and in place, do the bottom. Just run it across where the edge of that yardstick or ruler, whatever you're using, is. Now, I'm not going to move anything yet because we're going to need to trim off extra fabric, so keeping everything where it is. This is a 5/8 inch finish on this jean. They can be 1/2 inch, they can be narrower than that. I like to do everything the way the manufacturer did it unless somebody requests different. So if I'm going to finish 5/8 of an inch hem, I'm now going to measure down. This is my finish mark, but my cut mark, 5/8 plus 5/8, learn your rulers, That's 1.25 inches. So now I do the same thing, I repeat, but now I'm measuring down from my finish, putting a tick mark and a tick mark at 1.25, and we rinse and repeat. You know what we do here. We rinse and repeat a lot. Draw, fold, fold, and mark. If you have giant shears, you can slice right through that now. That is your cut mark. What's really fun is there's other ways to hem jeans, and I am going to do a video on different techniques. If somebody wants, if they have fancy stitching and they want to save the original hem, I'm going to show you how we do that, but we're not going to get into it today. Now, I have exactly what I want. I have my mark for my finished hem, and I have exactly enough to press. And when we press, and if you see how I did that? That's the speedy, professional way. But don't do speedy, professional if you need to slow down and do it the slower way first. The whole idea is getting comfortable and doing it again and doing it again. And pretty soon your friends will ask you to hem their jeans and you will charge them money for it. Yes, ma'am, you will. Yes, sir. Don't do it for free. Once people find out you can hem jeans, you're going to be busy. Okay, so now at the ironing board, there's a reason we're here. I'm folding, got to get that started. I'm simply folding it in on my white chalk mark. And this is the fastest, easiest method. By the way, if you have a faster, easier method or any method you'd like to share with us, we'd love to hear it. We love your comments. It's very encouraging to know you are watching. I put my iron on and just circle around. Now, some of you have a sewing machine with a free arm attachment. If you don't know what a free arm is, look it up on the internet. You'll find out. A free arm is a style of sewing machine. You have a flatbed and you can remove part of it, and it makes it easy when you're sewing in a tube, such as a pant leg. I never used a free arm. I never liked them. I like my table flush. I like everything to just move along. So it isn't that hard to hem a pair of jeans without a free arm, and that's what we're going to do today. So you will see. If you have the free arm and you're used to doing that, you go for it. I just never could figure out how anybody could sew with a gap. Things drop. You know what? It's everybody's personal choice. Okay, so you can see we have our crease from our hem and my wax chalk disappeared. Having folded it like so, we take the raw edge and turn it to that fold line. Ooh, you are awing now. You're oohing and awing because you're like, that is so cool. I didn't know you could do that. So when you press the raw edge to that fold and you fold again, what do you have? You have your finish that is 5/8 of an inch, just like the manufacturer did. It's so cool. And I tell you, when you do these frequently, you get fast. So we're just going to press. And I do not really need pins anymore. In fact, to be honest with you, I rarely do this step. Once I get my finished fold, I take it to the machine and I fold as I go. Fold that raw edge in. But I'm not going to do that to you today. That's for you to discover as you go along and do this. You will find more things that you can do to speed up your own process. Remember, talking about it as you do it increases the length of time. It's really a very fast thing. So, let me just show you that. Raw edge, folded into the finish line, finish folded over. Now, you can use straight pins for sure, but I want to introduce you to another little handy tool. If you don't know about clips, these have gained popularity, excuse me, and I do like them, and I do think that they are really handy for something like this. If you don't have them, just use what you have. This isn't stuff you have to go out and buy. Remember, this is simply a tool. It's a little extra. I have this stuff here in my shop because I'm a professional, and it speeds up my process, and therefore it pays for itself. If you're at home and you're on a more limited budget, you don't need the fancy stuff. Use what you have. And if you continue, if you enjoy it, and you know you're going to keep doing it, buy the goodies. And I will say, while I'm on the subject, I have a source that I like to recommend. The company is called WAWAK, W-A-W-A-K. If you go on the internet, wawak.com, they sell everything you need, soup to nuts, for sewing, dry cleaning supplies. You see, I have different measuring tools, I have different scissors, I need a lot of different things here. And everything at WAWAK is at least half of your retail brick and mortar. Shh, I won't mention any names, but I think you know who I mean. So now that we have this all clipped and ready to go, we simply do what? Rinse and repeat. So I'm going to do that off camera, and when I come back, we'll be sitting at the sewing machine. All right, we're ready to sew. Well, almost. A couple of things I want to mention I didn't talk about over at the ironing board. If you are only taking up the jeans a skoshi bit, like an inch or less, you're going to have to pick out this old hem before you can trim, fold, and prepare. So just a mention of that. Also, I look at the original stitch length when I'm setting my stitch length on my sewing machine because I want it to look mostly like the manufacturer made it to be. Okay, so I've done that. On jeans, it's typically not a full basting stitch, but a little bigger than a construction stitch. Next up, when we start sewing, we are going to start at the inside seam. The reason is where you start is where you will stop. And if you're not exactly in the same holes or you're off slightly, you don't want that to be on the outside of the leg. That's where people are most likely to see it, if they see it at all. But it's the fussiness that I live with. I think it matters. Details are important. So we're going to start at the inside. To begin, because this is so thick, I'm going to come beyond it. I'll put my needle in here, and do I have my pointer? Just inside of the hem fold, I'll be stitching here. As I said, if you have a free arm, and you can put it on the free arm, but I don't find that necessary. When it's this big, you can easily turn it as you go. Now, when we talk about probably the number one thing that frustrates most home sewers when they're hemming jeans is the thickness of these seams. Denim is heavy, and when you fold it 3 times, you're sewing through 3 layers of seam. That's a lot for a home machine to go through. So to begin, what I did, off camera, I changed my needle. I went from a size 80 or a 12 to a 90, which would be a 14. The higher the number, the bigger the needle. A 90/14 is your baseline for sewing in heavier fabrics. If you're going to do canvas, like a Carhartt type of material, you might even want to go to a size 100 or 16. For the jeans, you definitely want to change out your 80/12 for a bigger needle. That's one of the reasons needles break and get stuck here in this thickness. We have another trick that I'm going to show you when we get there. So let's get started, and I'll show you my little secret tool. Well, it's not so secret. Lots of people know about it, but not everybody, and I want to share it with you. Get my threads ready. I'm beyond that thick seam. Turn my needle in at the appropriate place. And now I'm just using a finger to hold back and a thumb to hold down. Muscle memory gets better. The longer you go, your hands automatically know where they need to be. What do? We grab our threads and start to sew. Start slow. See how your machine is doing. Once you start, guess what? I've got to skip. I'm glad that happened. I used a bigger needle, but it's one that I had from something previous because I didn't use it very much, and it might have gotten a burr in it. So let's start over, and we're going to use a brand new needle. This is the Schmetz brand 90 or denim needle. But before we get too far down the road, we want to look and make sure. Okay, now your manual or the manual online will show you how to put your needle in correctly. Get used to it. You should be changing needles frequently. On our first project, we did that top. When I finished that top, I threw away that needle, because needles get burrs, and you know, I'm maybe more fastidious about it here because I do it for a living. You don't want to create a snag in a client's garment. You don't want to do it in your own, but let me tell you, because I use vintage sewing machines, I have bought them at yard sales, and you can tell that needle is probably the original needle that was in it when it was bought in 1942. Okay, now we're going to start again, and that's fine. These little things happen. Patience. Just deal with it as just like life. Nothing is ever really convenient, is it? Okay, we're going to start again, and I'm going to check again. All right, you know I always stop and clip my threads. Get that out of the way. And now we're rocking and rolling up to the seam. You go as slow as you need to. Okay, now here's where we get bulky. This is the top stitch seam, and this is bulkier than the outside seam, which has no top stitching, but this still is thick. So I picked up a tool. I gotta tell you, it must have been in 1990. You don't have to have this. I'm going to show you if you don't have the fancy tool, but what this does, as you approach your thick seam, you're going to see how we slip this underneath, and it elevates your presser foot to keep it level across that thickness. Trying to do it like this, you can turn the wheel by hand and it may go across okay, but this definitely helps. Now, if you don't have the fancy tool and you can't find one, You grab a scrap piece of paper, because I'm a resourceful girl, and you just fold that paper a few times, get some thickness in there, and that will do the same trick. But I think I paid $2 for that could have been the 80s, probably was the 1980s, and somebody made $1 billion, well, billions of dollars off. I should have invented that myself. So, as we approach, take your foot off the pedal, hand turn that wheel, lift your presser foot, slip your paper or your Geenamajig in the back, and now I just hand turn the wheel. Needles break, timing gets knocked out of whack, and repair bills add up. So as I'm coming off, lift the presser foot up and take it out. Sometimes you may have to turn it, and that's what this little cutout is for. Coming off, you might need to keep it there, and helps to come down off of it. I don't think we need that on this seam. Let's see how we do on the next. And you're ready to get back to it. But the thickness, I tell you, people come in all the time to my shop and say, you know, I know how to sew, I've hemmed before, but my sewing machine, and especially the modern plastic sewing machines, this girl right here is called, she's direct drive, and that means she's all gear driven. She does not have a belt. It's metal gears inside turning her. That's why I use her. I love her very much. In fact, I just oiled her last week to give her a little spa. Okay, we're back at that big thick. Drop it down. Watch the toe of your presser foot that it doesn't get caught. Fussy work. Now, there we go. What I just did, it was the needle was stopping. I put a little pressure on the front of the foot, and that made it go in. Let's do it like that. Hand turn, it's going all the way through, and you need that big needle or the threads will, the stitches rather, will skip over that bulky seam. And we have done it. Now, I've gone all the way around and I'm off of that seam. I'm going to go in reverse 1, 2, and back forward once, and that's locked it in. Remember, we pull out from the back so we don't bend our needle. Clip and clip. So now I'm going to do the same thing again without talking. Ha ha ha. Good luck with that. All right, so we are beginning just beyond our inside seam. Get your threads where they belong. Needle down. I can pull this clip out of the way. Presser foot down, and I didn't hold my threads, but we did okay. Remember, whenever you stop, have that needle in the fabric. Can you imagine how fast you'll be able to do this when you don't need pins and clips? Pretty fast. You can do several pairs in an hour. All right, we're getting to our thick outside seam. Let's take our tool. I think I'll walk it a little bit closer. Put our tool under the presser foot. And that actually is going through pretty good. Once we start to come down, I can gauge it carefully. We don't need to put this in the front, so we can get it out of the way. This guy right here, he's the bad boy. He's the troublemaker. So let's get close. You see how my toe wants to jam into the fabric? That's your stopping point. Lift that toe up. Put your paper or your tool behind and roll. Turn it by hand. If the needle stops, try to put a little pressure on the foot, pulling it down, and that helps too. Okay, you see it's popped off, but I want to make sure. I might have to adjust it. Let's clip these threads. All right, we're safe. That out of the way, and now I'm going to come over the original, trying to stay right on top of those original threads, about an inch. Reverse, 1, 2, and forward once. Now while I'm here, I want to point out, this is always your end place. Whenever you're taking anything out of the machine, this thread bar should be all the way to the top. The reason is, and I will show you why. If you stop, let's go like so. Okay, I'm going to just demonstrate. Let me get this out of the way, and so you can see. Let's say you've clipped your thread here and you've stopped and your thread bar is down. When you go back to start sewing, your thread bar is still going up. Uh-oh, look what just happened. That's another big frustration with sewers, is it keeps unthreading every time. Well, it's because you stopped with the bar down, and when you go to start, it's got to come up before it can go down again. So when you stop, this is a big tip. I know it sounds silly to a lot of you, but I had the same frustrations for a long time. I had to learn it myself. You end your sewing with your thread bar in the uppermost position, and then when you go back to sew, it immediately goes right down. Will not unthread your needle. Okay, so SEW, we have finished hemming our pair of jeans. Now, of course, I'm going to take these back to the ironing board. We're going to seat those threads deep within that denim fabric. And if you notice, it looks slightly bumpy. When it does that, it's just because of the feed dog motion on. A lot of jeans now have a little stretch in them. When you take them over and hit them with some steam, it goes away, and they look perfect. They look like the manufacturer made them. When you have super stretchy denim or super stretchy anything that you are hemming, be very careful not to stretch beyond the natural point. When you are holding and putting that even tension on the fabric, don't go beyond that perfect tension. But even if you do, when you're when you're hemming jeans that have a lot of elasticity in them, they can finish looking like this. Don't worry, you didn't do anything wrong. You go over to the ironing board and you hit them with some good steam, and that all flattens out, okay? As long as you're not pulling on it. If you're yanking on it like that as it goes through, that's a different situation. But I will take these over to the ironing board, press them, and my husband will be able to wear them. So, not all sewing is fun. Utility sewing is necessary, but it has its own rewards. You will not be paying me or anyone else $20 or $25 to do what you could do at home. So, I hope you enjoyed our video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed, and we wouldn't mind if you shared it around to friends and family. You have a great day. God bless you, and we're going to be back next time with more basic sewing.